impacts to the trees. So it's one that will, the basement will encroach into the root zone of the tree some, but it will be within acceptable levels, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I'll open the public hearing. Anybody in public that wishes to speak on this matter? Okay, why don't you go first?
My name is Scott Mitchell. I live at 158 Green Oaks Drive. I've been an architect in the town for, unfortunately, about 40 years. And just for historical purposes, I've built and designed and built 4 guest houses, pool houses, accessory structures in the town. This is obviously a very unique site. And I worked very closely with Lisa and the planning department, and they've done a great job. So I think that we're okay in terms of all these planning issues. The reason that we're building a basement is basically for storage, in a washer dryer room, in a bathroom, a full bathroom. So to me, it's very straightforward. I grew up in the Midwest where every house has a basement. There was a lot of thought given to the tree situation, particularly the big heritage oak. And I haven't talked to the arborist about it much, but the center line of the tree to the beginning of my footings is 32 feet. That's the, I don't know how many of you have seen the big oak there, but that's the main one. And my criteria is always don't build anything in the drip line. And there is one branch extending into the drip line about, I would say, 10 feet. I've done a lot of this work in town, and I've never had any issues with it. But certainly, I'll work with the arborist. If there's any root damage, or if we have to cut anything, we'll get him out there immediately and try to mitigate as close as we can. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
My name is Barrett Anderson, and my wife Regis and I are next door neighbors to this project at 65 McCormick Lane. We have looked at the proposal and at the location, and we've also looked at the objections by the person who is doing most of all the objecting that I'm aware of. We do not feel that this is going to be a detriment to our property at all, or to the neighborhood. It's a very reasonable addition to a property that's almost 2 acres in size, not quite large enough to be split into 2 parcels, but more than enough room for this secondary building. Well, I suppose it would be nice if there were no buildings at all in McCormick Lane and we could just have a private woods down there. This is reasonable. It apparently satisfies the requirements of the town, and it will be virtually invisible to us and the other 2 neighbors who are near us, those that would really be concerned. A short walk down McCormick Lane reveals other examples of screening and fencing that in no way affect the attractiveness of McCormick Lane. I know that was one of the objections, that it would affect McCormick Lane, but this is a portion of McCormick Lane where only people that are using the pedestrian bypass, the bike access, and by the way, we were involved in that vacation of the property about 8 or 9 years ago, and we got the cart across the barricade. So we're pretty well acquainted with the situation. There's been criticism of second buildings, but right within a block of this, I'm aware of 5 or 6 other secondary dwellings. There's been concern expressed about possible damage to trees. We've had personal experience with this arborist, and we were most impressed with his experience, knowledge, and advice. We would trust his study. We can assure the Planning Commission that the neighbors are not all unanimously opposed to this. We've talked to several of them just this afternoon. Perhaps the Planning Commission, there's context to everything that happens in the world, and the perhaps you are aware or unaware of the history on McCormick Lane. It hasn't been happy, and Mrs. Dark has done all she can to squelch the problems, to deal with them. So we would like more than anything to be part of the peacemaking process and to see our neighborhood again be harmonious, and we see no reason why this legitimate use of her private property should not be approved. Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, where are you directly beside? I just want to figure out where you are. Are you here
With the circle seven,
or?
where the circle seven is.
Maybe Lisa could explain it.
Circle
Lisa, why don't you?
Okay, thanks. I'm just trying to get a perspective on.
You're on the Burn side, right? The McCormick.
Yeah, right.
He got the other portion of it, yeah.
Yeah, you got the other.
And then this property owner's the one that had requested it. Put it in there.
Which one is the letter from?
The gentleman that spoke is,
Yeah, where's the letter from?
oh, down here.
the street.
It's from 18 months.
Well, we're assuming because
It's
letter,
unsigned.
the letter of objection was anonymous.
Oh,
It's
is
not signed by anybody.
Okay.
It says residents plural of McCormick Lane, but it doesn't say who wrote it.
Okay. Do you want to take a minute to read this now, or is there
Yes,
anybody
Yeah,
else?
let's,
The gentleman, excuse me.
Is there anybody else?
we've heard the, is there anybody else that wants to speak on this matter? If not, I'll close the public hearing and we'll take a 3-minute break for speed readers.
So that obviously doesn't include me. Evelyn Wood changed my life.
This guy over here, that's his property line, not something else. He gets this property line. Which probably doesn't hurt him, but it's not the road. It's like maybe like 10 feet back. That's all.
I'm silent. Sorry about that.
Please tell me that was your phone line.
I don't know what it was. My daughter must have told me something. Oh, from YouTube? Then it was from my daughter.
Yeah. No, 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 it's okay. He made it up on it. Oh, I have.
All right.
You must have taken that one.
There was a time in my career that my ability to speed read and alphabetize was a differentiator, but search engines don't beat me now.
Put my glasses on.
You lost your screws, is that what it is?
Yeah.
And you checked your clothes.
Yeah, I did. I shaved my I walked to the men's room and back, so I couldn't fall.
You know, they sell it, those little kids do work for that, you know, the kids at Walgreens, they
Oh, yeah.
fit.
I gotta tell you, I buy these by the handful.
Yes, that way.
So I've got more at home. I said, I don't usually bring them with me. No, I don't need them for driving. I don't need them for reading. I only need them for reading. I have another pair in my car. Yeah. I have another pair in my car somewhere if I had to. I think I was agreeing with you.
Did everybody
We'd
finish?
be happy to respond to the question regarding longevity.
America? Finish? Okay. Phil? Well, he's so old.
I'd like to point out that age is a protected characteristic.
You know, I think Tom's the only one that could get away with that comment.
Yeah, within a few months of him.
Okay.
I discovered that even if I found another paragraphs, I couldn't fix it.
Okay, I'll ask the commissioners if they have any questions or perspectives resulting from this. You can ask the applicant if you want, if that's helpful to you.
I have a question, and that's just, you know, we seem to have, we have a letter here from 53 McCormick, and I'd like to know where that is in relation to here, and also whether there's been any contact with any of the adjoining neighbors, particularly the person on Burns, because they seem to be the closest to this structure of any.
She's 53, private drive, and
53 McCormick is directly behind the subject site and has the flag that traverses alongside the property and
So you're
is
saying
located
it's
directly
past
behind.
here?
it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. And do we know whether the person that lives, I think it's on Burns. but-
He's right here.
He's here.
Well, across the street, the across the street neighbor on Burns, I think you're interested in.
Yeah,
We did a public notice within a 500-foot radius.
but no one's aware that, no one's talked to anybody that said they had, liked it or didn't like it or anything like that. We just know that.
We have
sent a
only
private notice and
received
left.
this one, the 2 comment letters that you have before you. We have not received any other phone calls.
No.
Okay. Or comments.
Okay, and the applicant hasn't heard from them or anything? Okay. That was-
Only positive comments.
But the, if I understand correctly, the street, for at least for public driving, does not go through to Burn.
That's
That's
correct.
true, that is not a street, it's a driveway.
It's a driveway, it's a public.
Right, no, I'm asking only because the structure itself appears from my reading of the
Closest to
plans to
that.
be closest to that property.
Property, yes.
So
It'll be close, it's right close to the 20-foot
It's-
access to 50.
And their house is
Well, it's
oriented
closest to this.
towards Burns.
No,
Yeah.
because the driveway goes right down
I
here.
know,
Right.
but the structure is here, correct?
Yeah,
So that's why I was wondering
yeah.
if you knew what this person thought.
Sure.
Because they own the most property closest, even though there is a driveway.
Yeah, there's 40-foot
There's
setback, a driveway
plus
that
the
looked to
20-foot
be
driveway.
20 feet,
20 feet.
and then there's a setback on their side for property.
Sure.
Right, but it's,
They're the
they're
closest.
effectively the.
They're the
adjoining
closest
property.
to the structure.
Just wondering.
Are there any other questions arising from the letter?
I have a couple questions just in general.
All right, why don't we just start our discussion then,
Not necessarily letter-based, but I did,
and you could questions of anyone?
So the screening issue has come up a couple times, in terms of whether or not there'd be appropriate screening for the building. That's gonna be taken care of, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And if there's any issues with the trees, when are we gonna find those out? Are we gonna find them out before they get damaged, or how are we gonna find that out?
Yeah, there'll be a detailed arborist report will be required prior to building permit submittal, and that'll be reviewed by the town's arborist.
All right. The other thing that there, I just want to address one thing in one of the letters specifically, and that is that there's no de facto border parcel issue on this, is that correct? Yeah, there's a line in here about, basically it's about the difference between the property line and the easement, I guess. It's just not a very good way to say it, I think. There's no issue in that as far as you know.
As far as we're concerned, there's no
Okay.
issue.
They're not building into the easement.
Right.
They're not building into the easement, correct?
All right,
That's correct.
that's
Correct.
great, that's the way, that's what I was asking. You did it better. All right, that's all I've got then, thank you. I'm just along the trees or.
Anyone else? Well, with discussion, and you want to go, Marion?
I'm really dismayed that nobody's got a name on this letter. I think that is a big problem for their case. I kind of discount the letter because of that.
I think a member of the audience has a comment.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Dark. I'm the daughter of the applicant. And for the past 5 years, I personally have been fighting public comments and manipulation from the person who's written this letter. She has posted blogs about me
Mr. Chair?
personally.
Mr. Chair, hang on a second. The town has some rules and regulations about personal attacks on people. And since this is anonymous, we can't assume who wrote it.
Okay.
We're pretty sure we know who wrote it, but it is anonymous. And I think Mary Beth is absolutely correct. In a lot of jurisdictions, you would be told to disregard it totally, because, you know, if you want to be counted, you should put your name on things. Now, we don't have that rule, but I would say that, you know, you are entitled, so should you choose, to discount it somewhat because of the fact that it doesn't, you can't go to that person and ask, what did you mean when you said this, for instance. So it makes it hard for staff to even go looking for whoever wrote it.
Well, I can clarify that the letter was hand-delivered. It is not signed, but it was hand-delivered to us by.
But it doesn't matter who delivered
An
it, they may not have
By
written.
anonymous.
Well, it could have been written by somebody else in the neighborhood or even in another neighborhood.
Okay, well, I know who wrote it, and she has made our life very, very challenging.
Yeah, I would think that that's not part of this hearing today.
Okay, thank you.
The important thing for me is that the questions I've asked addressed anything that was brought up by anyone who either spoke or wrote to us. And so even if it weren't signed for me, if somebody didn't sign something and if they brought up a legitimate point, I would want to ask about it. So I've done that, and I'm comfortable with the answers that it's appropriate.
Okay. Mary Beth, do you want to continue?
No.
Okay.
So are we commenting and giving our positions, or are we just?
You're commenting and giving your positions.
Two people so far.
So it leaves you and Phil, if you'd like to volunteer, why don't we do that?
That's fine. So a couple things before we get into the bottom line. I actually am not perturbed by the fact that somebody didn't sign the letter, because there's lots of reasons. I mean, I can see that you don't want to mess up your relationship with the neighborhood. There's many reasonable reasons why you might want to do it. As the town attorney pointed out, the problem is that you can't ask any questions. So you've got to take the letter on its surface, and so that's a problem. So I don't have a problem with it not being signed, but I agree with my fellow commissioner that the points that were raised were largely dealt with, and it does appear, as you get farther into the letter, that there's a whole history going on here that is not necessarily relevant to the question at issue. In terms of the question at issue, it's obviously a strange lot, and I don't think before us is a determination on what the setbacks are or not, or impact on an easement and things like that. I look at it as it's an accessory structure where they're asking about a basement, and typically we have routinely allowed basements under accessory structures. There's no impact on trees, and the light wells are all fixed, then, I see that our precedent is almost 100% to approve it, so I don't see anything different with this. I just look at it as a basement under an accessory structure that doesn't exceed the footprint of the building, and so I'm fine with that, as we have been a lot of times.
Phil?
Yeah, I've got a couple comments, not necessarily with the basement, but with some of the notes that are on the drawing that was submitted to us, and having seen the property on Thursday. For example, along the property line at the rear, I guess it is, there's a note in here that says new fence, 120 feet with an arrow along that line. If you were going to put a fence along, you'd probably put it on the property line. I would suggest whoever looks at the landscaping plans urge that that fence be inset away from the property line, so that those neighbors along that driveway will have an opportunity to landscape their side of a brand new fence, because they may have a problem with a brand new fence that's going to take down all the ivy that's growing on it right now. Secondarily, the fence that's along McCormick Lane looks like it's in the right of way, and if they put one back, it ought to go on the property line. That fence is falling down as well. But no further comments.
Okay. My own position is, I'm not convinced in regard to the staff determination of front and side setbacks. So that's about where I would stand on this. May we have a motion?
I move that the planning commission approve the special structure permit at 49 McCormick Lane based on the findings and for the reasons enumerated in the staff report, and subject to the conditions listed in the draft special structures permit to allow a basement under an accessory structure. Second dwelling unit.
Yeah. Second, please?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? I would vote no. The motion or the approval is granted with 4 to 1 vote. Well, thank you. Subject to town ordinances, anyone has the right to appeal this action within 10 days to the council.
Do they have to sign the appeal?
I would hope so.
Yes, they do.
There's, an appeal is associated with an application, a letter of request citing the reasons, as well as payment of a fee.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George.
for waiting. The next item on the agenda is 228 Atherton Avenue.
The next item before you is a request for a special structures permit to construct a basement greater than the footprint of the first floor and to remain residence at 228 Atherton Avenue. The applicant is proposing a new house with a basement garage, as well as 2 accessory structures located towards the rear of the lot. The proposed basement will include a garage as well as living unit, mechanical rooms, theater, and recreation area. There's 3 areas where the basement is proposed to extend beyond the footprint of the house. 730 square feet towards the rear, in this area, 278, thank you. 278 square feet towards the front, and 405, split them up.
actually think those numbers are transposed, this is.
Could you
Oh, that's
point
the
out on-
405 too, sorry,
Could
278.
you point out on the big plan that we can see?
Yes, so 278 combined square footage along this area and this area, along this curve in here, and 405 square feet up here in the front.
And 700 feet at the back.
730 square feet in this area,
In this area,
the
okay,
center.
thank you.
All three locations will be considered squaring off of the basement and will not extend past the walls of the house. In addition, there will be no visibility from grade from either these locations or this one. There will be skylights here at the front at grade, but will be screened by landscaping. No heritage trees are proposed for removal as part of the proposal, and the applicant is working with the town arborist to ensure tree protection measures will be in place. Mr. Keelty conducted a site inspection and believes that any impacts to any nearby heritage trees will be within acceptable limits. We are supportive of the proposal, and we do not believe that this will have any impacts on neighboring properties. And as I mentioned before, in all three cases, the footprint of the house does enclose the basement areas. We have had cases before where someone's proposed a basement kind of coming out a little bit. In this case, we do believe that it meets the squaring off intention of the code. I'm available for any questions, and the applicant is also present as well.
Do you have any questions?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that I understand the calculations, that the floor area, the maximum buildable area, at least on the front of the plan, says that the maximum is 11,206 square feet. And then when it goes down, main house, guest house, gym, total 11,205 square feet. So are those the comparable numbers, so that basically the above the ground build out is to the maximum possible extent?
Well, let me double check. Correct. The first floor and second floor of the house are the 10,311 square feet. The basement is an additional 8,248 square feet, which is not included in the.
Right, that's a different issue. I'm just getting at above ground, it's built out.
They have 1 square foot left.
Literally,
Yes.
the last square foot.
Exactly.
Okay. I don't have
Any other questions?
any other questions.
Okay. Any other questions, staff? Okay, thank you very much. Does the applicant wish to make a statement?
Hi, good evening. My name is William Mongol, and I represent the owners of 228 Atherton Avenue. Our clients are a young family of 6, and
Can you get into the mic a little bit?
sorry, our clients are a young family. They have 4 boys, and they're looking to build their dream home here in Atherton. The unique shape of the floor plan, the H shape, is so that we can maximize the amount of daylight that's up above. It allows us to get windows on 3 sides of many of the rooms, and there were a couple of concerns when they first bought the lot. They were attracted to it by the very long driveway that it has coming into the lot, and by all the trees that were on the lot. The driveway starts about down here, and they were also very concerned about parking for the neighbors and being good neighbors. They know how much people don't like parking in front of their houses. So we designed a large motor court in the front so that they could have ample guest parking and a wide driveway so that cars can park all the way down the driveway. We also put in 2 staff parking spots for during the day, right here. And we located the garage, which is considered a noisy space, and the turnaround below ground. That also allowed us to keep more livable spaces above ground. So The reason that we are asking for the extended basement beyond the footprint is so that we can have the turnaround space in the garage and still all of our programming. And fortunately, with computers today, we are able to calculate very exact square footages, and that's how we came up with one extra. So, do you have any questions?
It's a grand home, it's a very grand home.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
This is a magnificent home, and it's gonna be a magnificent construction project. A lot of hauling in, a lot of hauling out. Where are all the workmen gonna park?
We've talked to the potential general contractor, and they've assured us that they will be able to phase the project so that with our long driveway and the whole motor court area, all that stuff can be built right at the very end, and they can use that whole area for parking. So all the way along the driveways and this whole motor court area won't affect
The
their.
fire department might have something to say about parking along that narrow driveway.
It's 20 feet wide, so hopefully, if a car takes up about 6 feet, you still got, a good 14 feet. And during the process, if they want to put down, grasscrete and they want to maintain a minimum width for a fire lane, I'm sure the general contractor will be able to work with that. There's enough space along there.
How big is the overall property again?
I think it's 1.4 acres.
I think the fire people are now demanding, I think, 16 feet, if I remember correctly, instead of 12, which was the former driveway width on flag lots. So
Okay.
you may have some problems, but also I think don't you have to submit a parking plan with the
Correct. As a part of the building permit submittal, they need to submit a parking and construction staging plan.
COP.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why we contacted the general contractor to make sure that we would get something like that for our submittal.
Are there any other questions of the applicant? Thank you very much.
All right, well, they're very excited to be moving to Atherton. Thank you for your time.
Okay, we'll close the hearing and we'll start with, how about you again, Mary Beth?
I don't have any problem with the plan, I think it's fine. I believe that the basement extensions are consistent with the intent of the law allowing it.
How about you, Phil?
Yeah, I visited this site on Thursday. It's a magnificent lot. It's going to be a wonderful addition to our town. I would like to add a condition number 5. All construction parking must be inside the property with proper fire department access.
Yeah. We may not be able to enforce that condition. For instance, they can park off-site in another location and shovel in.
That's fine.
And technically, I don't like to say this in a public meeting, but it's a public street, and if they park legally, anybody can park there, and we can't stop them.
Well, maybe we ought to address that in the COP.
I think that we've had some pretty good luck with building officials pushing the issue. But, like if some guy comes out there to make a bid and he parks in the wrong place, we're sort of, kind of made me chuckle listening earlier when the school said, well, we tell our students where to park. Well, I can tell you right now, if it's a public street and it's legal to park there, you can't tell them they can't park there. So it's kind of the same thing.
I understand that, but.
We do have some leverage with the contractors, and I'm sure that they will be happy to do everything they can to make us happy. We don't want to make the building official angry.
If you want to see a construction mess, come down Hawthorne Drive any time of the day, and you'll see a real mess on your hands.
There are some, and you're absolutely correct.
You know about that, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, the question is whether the requirements for showing parking by the contractor are being enforced at the time of issuance of the permit. I don't know. It certainly appears like on Hawthorne Drive that it wasn't. You have any further?
No, that's all.
Paul?
My interpretation of what we tried to do when we changed the ordinance was, we talked extensively about having footprints outside, or basements that were bigger than the footprint of the house, and we collectively came to the conclusion that that was not a good idea. We wanted to keep the basements within the footprint of the house, and we acknowledged that sometimes people had odd shapes, and, you know, that's why we got into the squaring off. However, I don't think this really fits within what we had intended in terms of squaring off. Because, I mean, my interpretation is, they built to the very last square foot, and if they had built a rectangular building, they would have been able to build basically a 6,000 square foot basement. But by having this design, they've got whatever, like 1,400 square feet of additional basement. And I don't think that's what the intent of the squaring off of the basement was about. It was about, you know, some of the other places where they sort of squared off, where they have, you know, interesting designs as they go down the wall. But, you know, having 1,400 square feet, I mean, it means you could basically build a horseshoe and then, you know, connect the two ends of the horseshoe and have a 15,000 square foot basement. And I don't think that was the intent of the ordinance. And since if Atherton is essentially, you know, an as-of-right design, you fall within the rules, you can build it. But if you have to come before the planning commission, I think you have to fit within both the spirit of the rules. You know, the planning commission is not required to approve the application just because you can make an argument that it's squaring off. And I don't think this basement falls within what we intended. And I think that's why we have those sorts of situations come before the planning commission to figure out whether they do or they don't.